Hello and welcome back to another episode of Generation Films. My name is American Ben. Today we continue in our coverage of humanity's best allies with a delve into the delicate world of elves. Now, many of you will probably be quick to validate elves as great allies of humans thanks to their high proficiency in cookie making. But before you jump to such conclusions, I ask you, are Keebler cookies an example of elf goodwill towards humans? Or an insidious attempt to kill us off by using our diabetes against us? Anyway, dwarves, which we covered last video, are much easier to generalize about, and no, not just because they're small and can't do anything about it, but because they're much more homogeneous as a group and across universes. Elves, on the other hand, differ greatly in characteristics across various universes and even sometimes within a single universe. But we at Generation Films must attempt to break down all of elfdom for you, conscious citizens out there, so you can be as informed as possible about your options as far as friends and allies go. Because there is so much variation among elves, we are going to do this by universe rather than by trait as we did with dwarves. Perhaps the most famous elves are the ones from Lord of the Rings, also known as the Quendai. As legend goes, the Quendai were the fairest and wisest of any race on Middle-earth. At least that's what they would have told you. The Quendai had their strengths as they were immortal, save for death by violence. This of course is a helpful trait if humans are battling Ebola zombies. The Quendai are immune to disease. Oh, but they can die from despair. A supreme weakness shared by humans known as hipsters. Overall, the Quendai were not totally unlike men in terms of appearance, but were consistently much more beautiful. I'm not sure exactly what good that does humans on the battlefield, but yeah, elves were well groomed. The Quendi did have superior vision and hearing to men though, and most useful of all, they could use magic and create objects of magic. This only makes dwarves more pissed off at them though. At the same time, they are much lighter of foot and are good for scouting and stealth missions. They are excellent at traveling long distances while leaving no way to trace them. They can even walk over snow without sinking into it, meaning they're useful in wintry battles. The Quendai often feared men, but they also consistently allied with them throughout their history out of a greater fear of other beasts, and thus their dealings with humans have been generally positive, even if they probably look down on them as savages in secret. Of course, it should be mentioned that elves were known to be excellent warriors. And the elves from Lord of the Rings are no exception. Legolas is considered a great hero among men, as he was part of the Fellowship of the Ring and a master bowman who helps protect the good forces of Middle-earth. He even overcame some of the differences he had with the dwarf in the group.
I'm on 17!
I don't point to you outscoring me!
Next, let's look at the WARCRAFT elves, another humanoid elf species. In general, these elves had excellent senses and supreme grace in movement and demeanor, and they were also capable of great magic. But this is a race of dwarves that gets a bit more complicated to break down because there's a bunch of different dwarf races. These races mostly fall into two groups, night elves and day elves, so there's a useful variety there. There were also purportedly elf-human hybrids, so obviously the two races have gotten along throughout history, though the level of fondness for humans depends on the race of the elf. Though there are a few characteristics among all elf races in WARCRAFT that are consistent. They usually have the ability to see clearly in low light conditions, are athletic, agile, and in shape. No word on their cookie-making abilities. Next, we have the Mer from Elder Scrolls. These elves weren't immortal, but were still capable of living for thousands of years, and were highly resistant to disease. Consistent with elves of other universes, the Mer were svelte in appearance and didn't have the muscle mass of men, but they were generally of greater height than humans. The Mer were masters of magic and could use such arts in warfare. The men in their world were not as gifted in magic, and so it was nice to have elf allies. Now, this all said, the nature of the human-elf relationship in Elder Scrolls really depends upon the elven race we're talking about, as there were once again many different kinds of elves in this universe, all with certain different abilities and characteristics. The Aldmer, for instance, were the most civilized among the elf races, or at least that's how they saw themselves. Their name actually means High One. Yeah, they're basically elven white supremacists, but they're hella good at engineering. Meanwhile, the Dunmer, or Dark Elves, were a race of isolationist delinquents who were hella strong, quick, and intelligent. They were basically dark gray supremacists? The elves from the Warhammer fantasy universe were, as many elven races are, one of the oldest and most intelligent races in their universe. Again, they were tall and svelte and knew how to use magic. All types of magic, that is, unlike human wizards in Warhammer, who were only able to master one form of magic during their lifetimes. They, like the Elder Scrolls elves, were able to live thousands of years as long as they can avoid dying in war. Though similar to the way that the Quendai from Lord of the Rings could die from despair, they could die from simply growing bored of life. Dying inside was a real threat for the Warhammer elves. Similar to the Eldar perhaps, the most elf-like race in Warhammer 40k, Warhammer Fantasy elves experienced emotions and thoughts to greater extremes. On one hand, this led them to obsess over mastering certain skills, especially those suited for warfare. On the other, they were also much more vulnerable to the chaos god Slaanesh, and could be corrupted by his powers. Warhammer elves were generally of great help to humans in fighting off chaos demons, but during the course of their history they splintered into different sects. Sects? S-E-C-T-S. Factions which included the High Elves, who were allies with humans and had great warriors in their ranks, the Dark Elves, who terrorized humans for ages and were deeply depraved, and the Wood Elves, who were basically misanthropic tree huggers. The elven race from Hellboy is just a little bit different than all of the other elven races on this list. First, some of them were beautiful and graceful, but others were pretty hideous. They did have incredibly long lifespans, possibly millions of years long, however they did get older and showed visible signs of age. Though just missing the bar for immortal is not much of a flaw. They were also fast, agile, and were highly adept in combat, even more so than humans, and to an extent, Hellboy himself. They were also magical and could make enchanted weapons. Additionally, these elves seemed to be mentally and spiritually connected to each other and could sense each other's presence and experience each other's pain and injuries. However, these elves didn't have such a great history with humans. Humans and elves once existed together in peace, but the elves blamed human greed for starting a war between the two races. This war led the elven king Balor to make a deal with a goblin blacksmith to build an army of indestructible mechanical warriors known as the Golden Army. And when Balor realized that this was a bad idea because the Golden Army would massacre humans without reservation, he forged a truce with humans. But the elven prince Nuada continued to murder humans and even attempted to turn Hellboy against humans. Overall, the Hellboy elves haven't been such great allies to humans. In the Marvel Universe, the most prominent elves are the Dark Elves of Svartalfheim. They are one of the oldest races in the known universe and have some of the most advanced technology, including interstellar-capable spaceships, cloaking devices, and plasma weaponry. They also have all sorts of melee weapons, armor, and even grenades that generate miniature black holes that destroy anything in their radius. The Dark Elves of the Marvel Universe are probably the most well-armed of all elves. They also have at their disposal the Cursed, enhanced super soldiers with incredible power that are so strong they can punch through force fields and even stop Thor's hammer. The Dark Elves themselves have strength, speed, and reflexes far superior to that of humans. They are also very durable and can withstand a heavy amount of damage, including to a degree from Asgardian projectile weaponry. Unfortunately, these elves have long been enemies of Asgardians who are human enough for that to piss me off. The Dark Elves from Marvel are no ally of humanity and are unlikely to ever be a good friend of man. To be fair, there are also Light Elves in the Marvel Universe, native to the world of Alfheim. They are peaceful, jovial beings who are friends of humanity. They, like the Dark Elves, have superhuman strength, speed, agility, and durability, and are really good at archery. The bad news is that they have almost no weapons and are highly likely to believe that love is the best weapon against a horde of frost giants. So the Light Elves are not very helpful to humans. They also have a vulnerability to iron, which probably means they can't hit the gym and get swole. Finally, we have the House Elves from Harry Potter. House Elves are little Pokemon-like eager-to-please creatures. Unlike their fellow elves of other universes, House Elves are not a proud and independent population. Rather, they are subservient to human wizards. They are capable of quite powerful magic that is very unique to their race. They are well known for being able to apparate, which is the ability to instantly transport from one location to another. I'm not sure how much of an advantage their magical powers are, given that they mostly exist among wizards, but they are unrelentingly loyal to their masters and are fierce protectors of their domain, which is usually a house. House Elves are not upward movers and will rarely act without explicit permission, and if they do, they are happy to physically reprimand themselves. In all, they are useful to humans, but less as allies and more as accessories. House Elves are a highly oppressed race, though recent laws and public advocacy have helped to marginally improve their living conditions. Still, they are, by law, subject to their master's commands. Well, as you can see, elves are a mixed bag. On one hand, they have been mostly good to humans and have helped them to victory in countless battles. On the other hand, they're also often not overly friendly with humans and look down on them. They're mostly svelte, graceful humanoid supremacists who aren't entirely fond of humans, but don't hate them either. But at times they are also the enemies of humans. There's few generalizations one can really make about the history of elven-human relationships. Elves at times have threatened the future of humanity, and at others have helped us to remember our Christmas spirit.
I'm in a store and I'm singing. I'm in a store and I'm singing.
Well, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Definitely let me know in the comments below what you think of elves. Make sure to point out any important elf characters or races that I missed in this video. Definitely give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. For now, my name is American Ben, and I'll catch you next time. Generation Films, peace.